My name is Lin Hao, the slave in the bottom of the Silver River Empire. He lives next to the garbage dump of the Black Iron Star. His daily work is to wipe the dust off the ass for the noble tribes. To be honest, I don't have any great ambitions like this, and it's already amazing to be alive. But even this humble right to survive was trampled under the feet by those noble people who were above them. That day, as usual, I dragged the old recycling car and searched for the money-worthy waste materials in the lower area of the Black Iron Star. The air was filled with the smell of oil and rot, and the floating city of the noble tribe flashed with golden light, as if mocking us for these slugs. Suddenly, a low growl came from afar. It was a patrol mechanical dog of the noble tribe, specially used to clean up unspeakable slaves. My heart tightened, and I tightened my head behind a pile of waste irons, holding my breath. "Lin Hao, come out." A rough voice came from behind the mechanical dog. It was Duke Carr's subordinate, Iron Fist Jack. This guy is a gene-strengthening thug. He is full of flesh on his face and can smash the steel plate into a hole with one punch. He walked towards me with a few mechanical soldiers. I bit my teeth tightly and made a statement in my heart. Why is this guy again? In the past few months, Duke Carr has not known what to draw and has crazily arrested people from the lower area for some genetic experience. My parents were arrested half a month ago and their whereabouts are still unknown. I was alone and thought I could hide, but I was still targeted. "Mr. Jack, I'm not doing anything bad." I stood up hard and smiled that was harder than crying. Jack sneered, raised his hand and slapped it over. I was stunned and fell directly to the ground, bleeding from the corner of my mouth. "Stop talking," Duke Carr asked for your genes. "Your parents are not bad, now you are here." Jack stepped on my chest, the weight of the mechanical boots made me breathless. The mechanical soldier behind him lifted a gun, and the blue arc was sizzling to turn me into coke at any time. Why do you have to catch us?" I gritted my teeth, my voice trembling, and I felt a little unwilling. Jack grinned and showed his mouth full of teeth. "Because you have these rubbish, there is something the Duke wants in your genes. Don't slap it, follow me obediently, maybe you can live a few more days." My heart sank, knowing that I really can't escape this time. When my parents were arrested, I couldn't protect them, and now I'm going to fall in. I'm not willing to give up, but what can I do? I am just a waste, and I don't have the energy to resist. At this moment, a light sound suddenly came from the wasteland pile next to it, as if something had been touched. Jack and I turned around at the same time, and only saw a group of black metal balls rolling out from the iron pile, with a gloomy blue light on the surface, looking like an old weapon. Jack glanced at the eyebrows and signaled a mechanical soldier to check it out. "Be careful, it may be the slaughter of the nanomechanical scorpion," Jack warned in a low voice. The ball looked really not simple, with small cracks on the surface, and there were certain flowing light in the cracks. My heart was moved. Nanomechanical snail? That is the most dangerous taboo in the Empire. It can swallow everything and even the starship can be dismantled into pieces. How did I encounter this here? The mechanical soldier just approached the ball and suddenly a bang sound, the ball exploded and turned into a group of blue light, which directly diamonded into my arm. I screamed in pain, covered my arms and rolled on the ground, only to feel a cold thing shattering under my skin, as if countless small claws were gnawing on my flesh and blood. What kind of ghost thing is this? Jack took a step back, full of shock. The mechanical soldier lifted the gun and made an arc to me, but the blue light seemed to have consciousness and jumped out of my arm, instantly swallowing the gun, and half of the body carrying the mechanical soldier turned into a group of iron water. "Open the fire! Turn on the fire!" Jack yelled, and the remaining mechanical soldiers rushed towards me. The laser beam and the arc exploded around me, and the ground was burned. But strangely, I was fine. The blue light flowed through my body, as if it was covering me with an invisible shield. All the attacks were knocked down, and there was no pain. This is impossible." Jack was stunned, his face blue. I looked down at my arms, and under my skin, I could see the blue focal fluid flowing, like some kind of energy awakening in my body. Suddenly there was a lot of information in my brain, like someone stuffed his knowledge into my brain directly. The gene editing device was activated, and the host gene lock was detected. Will the restrictions be lifted? Gene lock? Restrictions lifted? I was stunned for a moment, but looking at Jack's face, a sudden burst of fire ignited in my heart. No matter what it is, live first. Relieve. I gritted my teeth and growled, and the voice fell, and a heat burst out from my body, as if the blood in my body was boiling. My muscles swelled instantly, and a sense of strength filled every cell of my life like never before. As soon as I clenched my fists, the air burst out with a loud breeze, as if I could smash everything. Jack, I won't play with you today. I stood up suddenly and stared at him. Jack was stunned for a moment, and immediately roared, "Do you dare to resist, trash? Seeking death." He directly activated the fighting exoskeleton on his body, and a red light appeared from his mechanical arm, and he punched me in the brain. The force of that punch was enough to smash a floating car into an iron bait. But I didn't retreat. When I faced his fist, I punched him out. Bang! With a loud bang, Jack's mechanical arm was smashed directly by me, and his whole body flew backwards, hitting the pile of wastelands, and spitting blood in his mouth. All the mechanical soldiers around were stunned, as if they had seen a ghost, and even forgot to shoot. I looked down at my fist, without any scratches on it, and an unprecedented sense of pleasure surged in my heart. This power, is me after the gene lock is lifted. I am no longer a waste to be slaughtered. Jack, aren't you very bad? Get up and fight again. I walked towards him step by step, and each step seemed to hit the ground repeatedly, causing a low vibration. Jack covered his chest, his face full of shock, and even said something unscrupulous. "You, how could you? This isn't a power that a slave can have." Slave? I will let you know today that I can also step on the legs of these precious tribes under your feet. I sneered, raised my foot and stomped it hard, and directly crushed his fighting exoskeleton into a pile of waste irons. Jack let out a cry and fainted. The mechanical soldiers around finally reacted and began to fire at me wildly, but I was not afraid of these gadgets at all. With a blow, the air was torn open by me, the laser beam was directly deflected, and the mechanical soldier was smashed by me, and instantly turned into a pile of waste irons. The residents of the lower area hid in the corner, secretly watching everything, their eyes filled with shock and unbelievable. I know that they have never seen slaves fight against the noble clan's subordinates, not to mention punching one by one like me, and directly lying down monster-level thugs like Jack. Lin Hao, you are crazy. Duke Carl will not let you go. A mechanical soldier roared in an electronic voice before his death, and immediately I stepped on the core. I sneered and wiped the blood from my face. Don't let me go? I haven't paid any credit for him yet. I won't let go of my parents' grudges. After saying that, I turned around and looked at the floating city far away, where Duke Carl's ground was also where my parents were imprisoned. The release of the gene lock gave me the first time I had a strong sense of confidence. I knew that from today on, I was no longer the waste Lin Hao who was slaughtered. I want those precious people to know that the only way to force our downstairs is to be crushed. At this moment, a deep sound of silence suddenly came from a distance, like a large warship approaching. My heart squinted, and I looked at it. I saw a black floating boat flying from the direction of the floating city. On the deck was a man in a dark red robe, with a cold air, as if he could turn people into ice slag. It's Duke Carl's team. A resident hiding in the corner screamed in a low voice. I clenched my fists and my heart beat faster. Although I just smashed Jack, is I so strong when facing the real nobles? The warships were getting closer and closer, and the figures on the deck became clearer and clearer. The man looked at me with his head down, a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth, and his voice was low and full of pressure. Lin Hao, did you hear? You dare to resist? Very good. I want to see how big a slave can make. I stood beside the pile of wastelands, carrying the smell of nitros. My fists were clenched and my eyes were staring at the black floating boat in the sky. The man in a dark red robe on the deck was as cold as if he could kill someone. A mocking smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, as if he didn't take me seriously at all. His voice was low and harsh, like a knife shaved over the steel plate. Lin Hao, a little slave, dares to scatter wildly in my floor? I'm not a little shit. I felt a little nervous. Although I just smashed Jack and his mechanical dog legs to look for my teeth, I knew very well that this guy was not a normal person. Duke Karstein was a monster whose genes were strengthened to the extreme. Anyone pulled it out could remove the battle deck with one hand. Although I have untied the gene lock and my power has exploded, compared with the minions of this top-level precious tribe, I am not sure about how many pounds it is. Why, are you scared? Are you not quite capable of fighting? The man sneered and raised his hand. 10 blue lights suddenly appeared around the warship, turning into circles of energy shields, wrapping the entire warship seriously. Then, the turrets on both sides of the deck moved slowly, and the black muzzle pointed directly to me, and the air seemed to have the smell of burnt high-energy particles. I bit my teeth tightly and flew in my brain. It is definitely not possible to fight hard. This thing is obviously not the same as me who can punch with one punch. Run? Even more impossible, the speed of the warship is 10 times faster than mine, and if you can't run a few steps, you will be knocked into scum. The only way out is to dive in first and find a chance to fuck him close to him. Scared? I'm afraid of you. I yelled deliberately, putting on a look of fearlessness, and then stomped my feet suddenly, and I stepped on a big pit on the ground. The whole person used his strength to rush out and headed straight to the ruins of the lower area next to him. Sure enough, the man on the warship looked cold and he whispered, "Want to run? Make a dream." The turret opened fire in an instant, and several high-energy lasers slashed over like a knife, and the ruins were blown into a pile of slags and smoked. I used the smoke to cover it up and drifted into a broken sewer, covered in dust, panting like a dog. But the sound of the geek coming from my ear told me that the warship was still chasing and the pressure was not going to let me go. I sneered in my heart, gritted my teeth and climbed forward, and at the same time, my brain was crazy about the information that was plugged in when the gene lock was just unblocked. There is power, but you still have to explore how to use it and how to control it. As I was crawling, I suddenly heard a slight metal friction sound coming from the front, as if something was moving quickly. My heart slammed, stopped suddenly, and held my breath. The next second, a black shadow emerged from the darkness, so fast that I almost didn't react. The cold light flashed and a dagger was already on my neck. "Don't be honest, who are you?" A cold woman's voice came from the dark shadow, with a murderous atmosphere in her language. I glanced at the corner of my eyes and found that the woman was wearing a broken battle suit, covered with a black mask on her face, only a pair of sharp eyes were exposed, and the dagger in her hand was flashing with the light of the blue, which looked like it was not an ordinary stock at first glance. "Sister, don't misunderstand, I'm not the tyrant of the noble clan." I rushed and said in a low voice, "My name is Lin Hao. I just broke Jack outside. Now I'm chasing and killing him by Duke Car's team, and I'm hiding in." Her eyes flashed, as if she was a little surprised, and the dagger relaxed a little, but she still didn't completely relax. "Jack? Jack? Jack, the iron boxer? Can you, a slave in the lower area, fuck that guy?" "Believe it or not, I have no right anyway." I replied without any worries, and my ears were still hearing the silence outside. The sound of the warship is getting closer and closer, and it is obvious that the team has locked this area. The woman seemed to hear the silence, and she snatched her eyebrows, finally took back her dagger and said in a low voice, "I am Ellie, a rebel. If you are really an enemy, I will kill you with your hands. But now, we have to fight first, otherwise no one can escape." "Rebel?" I was stunned for a moment, and those words appeared in my brain. The rebels of the Silver River Empire have been secretly resisting the pressure of the noble clan. Although there are not many people, they are all cruel characters. I didn't expect to come across one here. I clicked a little and grinned. "Okay, let's join forces, the noble tribe's doglegs, I'll smash the other one." Ellie didn't say anything anymore and quickly took me deep into the sewer. Her movements were quick, as if she was too familiar to the place, and she turned around and rolled over a pile of rotten pipes and finally dribbled into a secret basement. There are all old weapons and weapons here, and there are several sealed boxes piled up in the corners of the wall, emitting a strange smell. This is our temporary moment. Please hide for a while. Ellie said in a low voice, and at the same time, she turned on a strolling communication device, and a bunch of data popped up on the screen, as if she was monitoring the static outside. I leaned against the wall, gasped for a few breaths, and then asked, "Aren't your rebels always looking for trouble from the noble clan? Why would you hide in this ghost place?" Ellie glanced at me, and his voice was cold, "Because we discovered something we didn't know. Duke Carl is not just a simple slave, he has a bigger sarcasm behind him. Have you heard of the nanomechanical sex?" I was shocked, and the small ball that exploded in the wasteland pile appeared in my brain, and there was also a blue light that diamonded into my arm. I heard that. I have encountered it. That thing almost swallowed me up. Ellie's expression became more solemn. She walked to the corner of the wall and moved a box. There were a bunch of small balls flashing with dark blue light, exactly like what I saw before. She said in a low voice, "This is the slaying of the nanomechanical sex, the forbidden weapon of the Empire. Originally, it was used to dismantle the starship waste, but Duke Carl transformed them into biological and chemical weapons that could swallow everything and even control people's consciousness. He captured the people in the lower area not just a simple genetic experiment, but to feed these sects and cultivate stronger control cores." What? Control your mind? My brain buzzed, and when I thought of my parents, my heart felt like I was stabbed by a knife. What do you mean is that my parents may have already? Don't worry, it's not that far. Ellie interrupted me, and his vocalization was firm. According to our information, the core of the sect group has not yet been fully formed. Most of the people arrested are still alive, but are regarded as a test body and are connected to the underground test room of the floating city. Our goal is to dive in, destroy the core, and rescue people. I bit my teeth tightly, my fists clenched. My parents are still alive, this is the only good news. But when I think of them being regarded as testimonials, the fire in my heart became even more intense. Okay, I'll fuck you. Duke Carr, I have to smash him into meat paste. Ellie clicked the hen and was about to say something. Suddenly the communications emitted a harsh warning, and the screen showed that the warship had locked this area and the high-energy scan was approaching. Her face changed and she growled, "It's too late, they've found us. Get ready for a fight." As the voice fell, the top of the basement suddenly exploded, and a strong shock wave directly overturned me to the ground. Among the smokers, several team members wearing mechanical armor fell from the sky, and the man in dark red robe just on the warship was the man in dark robe just now. He looked at me with a sneer, his voice cold, "Run quite fast, Lin Hao. But the game ends here. Hand over the gene editing device in your body, maybe I can make you die happily." "Thank you." I roared angrily and popped up directly from the ground. The heat in my body exploded again, and my muscles instantly swelled, as if I could tear everything open. I rushed over with a quick step, and my fist slammed into his chest with a broken voice. The force of this punch can even be smashed through the steel plate, so I don't believe he can withstand it. Bang! There was a huge sound, and my fist hit his armor, leaving only a clean crack. The man snorted coldly and slapped him with his backhand. I could only feel a huge force coming, and the whole person flew backwards and hit the wall hard, making my bones almost parted. "With this kind of energy, dare to challenge me?" He smiled mockingly, slapped his palm, and the members behind him immediately lifted their energy guns, and the blue beam shot towards Ellie and me. Ellie reacted very quickly, and she flipped and dodged, and threw out an electromagnetic bullet, instantly storing several teams' mechanical exoskeletons. "Lin Hao, don't fight hard, find a chance to break out," she shouted, pulled out a high-frequency vibrating knife from her waist, and rushed up to fight with a team member in close combat. The sword light flashed and directly cut off the other party's armor and sprayed blood. I gritted my teeth and got up, and the information flow of gene locks suddenly flashed in my brain. Although the power just now is strong, it has not yet reached its limit, and there is still potential to dig. I closed my eyes, focused, and growled, Gene lock, second level, open. In an instant, a stronger heat burst out from my body, and my visual line became clear and incomparable. My muscles seemed to be compressed and released by infinite pressure, and my sense of strength directly doubled. I suddenly opened my eyes, roared, and rushed towards the man in dark red robe. The fist was filled with blue light, as if it could tear the space apart. Bang! This time, he finally couldn't hold it completely. My fist directly smashed through his armor, and the blood was sprayed out of the crack. His face changed and he was furious. How is it possible for you? It's impossible for you to be ahead. I will teach you how to be a human being today. I grinned, regardless of the injuries on my body, and punched several times in succession. Each punch seemed to be heavy, directly smashing his armor into pieces. He finally couldn't help but vomited a mouthful of blood and stumbled back. Retreat! Retreat quickly! He gritted his teeth and roared. The members of the troops behind him quickly gathered. The energy shield opened again, forcing my attack to retreat to the warship. The warship emitted a sound of a whirlwind, quickly lifted off the air and disappeared into the night. I gasped, my fists were covered with blood, and my body was hurt, but my heart was so happy. In that wave just now, although I didn't fuck him, at least I let the help of the precious clan know that slaves are not easy to bully. Ellie walked over to me, wiped the blood from her face, her eyes mingled. Your strength is not something that ordinary people can do. However, Duke Carl would not let it go. The defense of the floating city will be even more serious, and we have to seize the time to dive in. I pointed and looked at the floating city with golden light far away, and a rage ignited in my heart. My parents were still waiting for me, and the secret of the nanomechanical snail group had to be clarified. No matter what defense he is or what he is, I can't hold back if I punch this time. But at this moment, Ellie's communication suddenly started to re-emergency, and an emergency message popped up on the screen. She glanced at her and her face turned into a flash. Oh no, another rebel's attack was hit. Duke Carr may have known our plan and started to fully suppress the attack. I stood in the ruins filled with smoke, with blood and smell of nitrazone on my body, my fists clenched and my eyes fixed on the floating city with golden light far away. The fire in my heart was getting stronger and stronger, and my parents were still suffering. The bastard Duke Carl's bastard's mouth couldn't be removed in my brain. I bit my teeth tightly and said in a low voice, I have to smash that place. Ellie next to her wiped the blood from her face, and her face became increasingly difficult to see. The communication device in her hand was still flashing with red light, and the urgent message that just jumped out seemed to tighten her heart. She lowered her curse and said to me, Lin Hao, the situation is worse than we thought. Another rebel was taken away, and Duke Carr, the dog-like thing, has begun to fully suppress us, and it is estimated that it will be locked here soon. We have to move immediately and dive into the floating city, otherwise there will be no chance. Dive in? I glanced at her. Although the wound on my body was still hurting, the heat in my body began to boil again, as if I could burst out again at any time. Okay, I was just trying to find that old thing to make a fortune. But, his defense of breaking the city is so serious, how can we go in? It's not possible to be hard. Although my punch was just good, it was not as good as it could smash the entire city. Ellie sneered and took out a small black chip from her waist with a faint blue light on it. This is the password of the rear door of the floating city stolen by our rebels. It can close some of the defense systems in a short time. However, it can only be used once, and it will be killed after use. There is only one chance. Moreover, Duke Carl himself is in the city now, and his team is not a vegetarian. We will die for a lifetime. A lifetime of death? I grinned and patted my chest. I had already thrown my life away when I crawled out of the garbage dump. No matter what team he was, what Duke, I punched me, who wouldn't want to kill me? Tell me, how do you fuck me? Ellie clicked the head and quickly tapped a structure of the floating city on the communication device, pointing to an inconspicuous side wing passage and said, This is the entrance to the back door. The defense is relatively weak, but there will still be patrol machinery and energy barriers. We have to dive first, turn off the main control system, then go straight to the underground laboratory to rescue humans, and at the same time destroy the core of the nanomechanical gang. If the time is not long, if Duke Carl receives the voice, he will immediately urge the main force to kill us. Okay, it's not appropriate to be a waste, just act now. I gritted my teeth, moved my shoulders, and the sense of power in my body began to move again. Ellie didn't say anything anymore, quickly packed up the equipment, brought a few electromagnets and high-frequency vibrating knives, and signaled me to follow. We slipped out from the basement side, and with the cover of the night and ruins, we quickly approached the lower floating platform of the floating city. The golden light far away became more and more dazzling, and the air was filled with the buzzing sound of high-energy particles moving, making people's skin numb. The energy shield around the floating city is like a light curtain, wrapping the entire city strictly. Occasionally, a patrol boat swept over the top, scanning the light beam back and swaying on the ground. "Let's go down." Ellie growled and pulled me to hide behind a pile of waste irons. A scan light just passed over our heads and almost locked our heat source. My heart beat like a drum, and I didn't dare to say anything when I bit my teeth. After the beam moved, Ellie said in a low voice, 50 meters ahead is the back door entrance. I will use a chip to turn off the shield, but it only takes 10 seconds. Don't stop after entering, otherwise you will be trapped in the barrier and become coke. I clicked a little, took a deep breath, my muscles were tight, and I was ready to sting at any time. Ellie quickly inserted the chip into the communication device, and a series of codes popped up on the screen. Then she heard a sizzling sound. The energy shield in front suddenly flashed and a small hole broke. "Shut!" She yelled softly, and we instantly rushed out like a shattered arrow. That 10 seconds seemed like a lifetime, and my ears were filled with low sounds of shields closing, and I almost tied us into a meaty bun. After entering the entrance, I gasped heavily and turned around and saw that the shield behind me had completely recovered, as if it had not been opened. "This broken thing is really scary." I wiped my sweat and said with a grin. Ellie ignored me and quickly turned on the combo, adjusted the internal map, and carried me forward along the narrow passage. The light in the channel is dim and metal pipes are all on both sides. At the same time, you can hear the low sound of mechanical operation, as if something will pop out at any time. After walking for a few steps, a red light suddenly lit up in front of me, and then several patrol mechanical dogs emerged from the corner. The red electronic eyes locked us tightly, and a harsh warning sound came out from his mouth. The invader discovered that the mode was almost activated. "Damn it, it's so fast," I replied, and the heat flow inside my body exploded instantly, and my muscles bulged, and I directly rushed over and punched the mechanical dog in the front. With a bang, I smashed the thing into a pile of waste irons in 4 parts. Ellie was not idle either. The high-frequency vibration knife in her hand drew a cold light, instantly cutting the core of another mechanical dog, and sparking it. But this static has already shocked more patrol units, with dense footsteps transmitted from the deep channel, and a buzzer that is charged by energy weapons. My heart sank and I growled, "Allie, don't fight, go past." She clicked her head, threw out an electromagnetic bullet, and instantly stormed a few mechanical dog systems, which gave us some time. The man ran all the way, killing the heavy area, and finally arrived at the door of the machine room where the main control system was located. The defense here is even more serious. There are 2 heavy machinery guarding outside the door, the muzzles are facing us, and the energy beam is accumulating and waiting to be developed. "Lin Hao, can I get it done with 1 punch?" Ellie gasped and asked me in a low voice. "Try it." I grinned, and the power inside my body was once again adjusted to the limit. The fist was filled with blue light, as if it could tear the air open. I rushed over, dodged a beam of energy, and then punched hard on one of the guardian chests. With a shock sound, I smashed the thing directly, and the explosion almost overturned me. Another guard responded, and the muzzle regurgite turned toward me, but Ellie seized the opportunity, entered its back line with one size fits the way, and forced it to snail it. "Go in." She pushed open the door of the machine room, and we quickly rushed in, closed the door, and blocked the entrance with a bunch of waste irons. The machine room is full of densely packed instruments. A huge screen in the center shows the panoramic monitoring of the floating city, and the core data of the nanomechanical worm group. I glanced at it, my heart was shocked, and the screen showed that the activity index of the snail group was rising, as if it was going to get out of control at any time. Ally, what's going on with this thing? Why is the squad still accelerating? I asked with a brow. She quickly operated the console in front of her, and her face became increasingly difficult. Oh no, Duke Carr has already started the final situation of the gangster in advance. If the core is not closed immediately, the gangster will swallow the entire floating city within a few hours, and even spread to the starry sea, and nothing can be saved. What? Swallowing the sea of stars? My brain buzzed, thinking of the horror that the blue light dripped into my body, and a sensation behind me. What are you waiting for? Keep it tight. Ellie gritted her teeth and operated on the console quickly, but a red warning suddenly popped up on the screen. The permission is insufficient, the core closing failed. She smashed the console hard and growled, "Diet, Duke Carl has set up the highest level password lock, and he must be present to unlock it." "I'm here?" I sneered, my fists clenched. "That's fine, I'll go find him now and let him solve it." "Where is he?" Ellie touched the supervision and pointed to a black palace at the top of the floating city. "There is the Duke's Hall. He should be presiding on the startup ceremony of the gang, and the teams were all around, and he was just looking for death. You have to go even if you want to die." I gritted my teeth and felt that my parents' lives and the safety of the entire Star Sea were all under the pressure. I turned to Ellie and said in a deep voice, "You stay here and continue to crack the system. I will go to meet that old thing. Leave me away, and I can't smash him any time. We can still get a backup plan." Ellie hesitated for a moment and finally said, "Okay, don't show off and come back alive." I didn't waste my time, and directly pulled out of the machine room, ran towards the Duke's Hall by the monitoring map. Along the way, the police sounded so harsh. Numerous patrol machinery and troops came towards us, but my pressure did not stop. The genetic locking power in my body was urged to the extreme. Every punch was a waste, and every step was like an earthquake, killing a bloody path. Finally, I kicked the door of the Duke's Hall with one foot, and the scene in front of me made my pupils shrink. In the center of the huge black hall, Duke Carl stood on a floating platform, wearing a dark golden robe. His face was as cold as water could drip. All around him were a group of nanomechanical cysts flashing with blue light, as if they were alive, spinning in the air, emitting a harsh low bird. In the transparent container below the platform, hundreds of residents in the lower area were kept under the transparent container, with expressionless faces, as if they were controlled. I saw my parents at first sight. Although I was still alive, my eyes were empty, as if I had lost my soul. "Lin Hao, you really dare to die?" Duke Carl looked at me with a low head, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. "I wanted to use your family's genes for the final experiment, but I didn't expect that you would send it to the door yourself, which saved me a lot of trouble." "Save you big?" I roared angrily, and the heat in my body exploded to the extreme, and my muscles seemed to be able to explode. I suddenly rushed to the platform, my fist carried the broken voice and rushed straight to his brain. "I won't kill you today, I won't stop." Bang! This punch actually hit his chest, and a hole was instantly cracked in the dark golden robe. Duke Carl was smashed by me and took a few steps back. His face changed, as if he didn't expect that I could have such strength. But he quickly calmed down, snorted coldly, and slapped his palm. The group of sluts next to him seemed to have received an order, instantly squeezing towards me, and the blue light cuts the air like a knife. I gritted my teeth and held it hard, and my fists continued to slap, smashing the thorns apart, but my skin was still covered with blood marks, which made me so much that I sucked my air. Duke Carr sneered, walked off the platform slowly, and his voice was low. "Do you think you can't be enemies if you untie the gene lock? Tell you, these critters are my most perfect works. They can swallow everything, including your power. And your parents have long become my puppets. You can't save them, you can only die with them. Close your mouth." My eyes were almost glaring, and my parents' empty eyes pierced into my heart like a knife. I growled, and the information flow of gene locks in my brain suddenly flickered wildly, as if it was a reminder that I had stronger power and it was useless. I bit my teeth tightly and shouted, "Gene lock, 3rd level, open." In an instant, an unprecedented heat burst out from my body, and my vision became red with blood, and the sense of power seemed to be able to tear the starry sky. I suddenly rushed towards Duke Carl, ignoring the attack of the group, and hit his chest with a punch. This time, his armor exploded directly, and blood was sprayed. He was blown away by me, hitting the edge of the platform, and vomiting blood in his mouth. This is impossible." Duke Carl's face was full of shock, as if he had seen a ghost. His body was trembling. The team beside me finally reacted and opened fire on me wildly, but at this moment I seemed to have entered some kind of invincible state, and the energy beam hit me, leaving no trace left. I turned to look at the teams and sneered, "It's you." After several punches, the team was smashed directly by me, and the ground was covered with wasteland and blood. Duke Carl covered his chest and stumbled back, his voice whispering, "Lin Hao, dare you kill me? I am a noble tribe of the Empire, you are rebelling." "Rebellion? I've wanted to rebel for a long time." I approached him step by step, and the blue light flashed on my fist seemed to crush everything. "You forced us to catch my parents, and wanted to destroy the starry sea with a snail. Today I will let you know what is a counterattack of the snail." I raised my fist and was about to give him the last blow when the platform under my feet suddenly shook violently, as if the entire floating city was shaking. Duke Carl suddenly laughed wildly, and his face filled with tears. "It's too late. The core of the gang has been completely activated, and I can't control it anymore. Lin Hao, even if you kill me, you can't save anyone. This sea of stars will eventually be swallowed." My heart sank. When I looked down, I saw that the blue light below the platform was getting stronger and stronger, as if it was about to explode at any time. My parents were still in the container, and there were countless innocent people in the floating city, and Ellie's communication suddenly came to her urgent voice, "Lin Hao, the gang is out of control. If you don't close the core, everything is over." I stood on the platform of the Duke's hall, my fist was still in the air, and Duke Carl's face was right in front of me, with blood hanging from the corners of my mouth, and my eyes were filled with a crazy smile. The floating city under the feet was shaking more and more, as if it was about to collapse at any time. The blue light burst out from below the platform, and the low sound of the nanomechanical sex made people's ears hurt. Ellie's voice came from the communication device, and she was so anxious that she almost broke the sound. "Lin Hao, the core of the gang is out of control. If it doesn't close, the floating city will be over, and the entire star sea will be swallowed. Remember you." I gritted my teeth and slashed my anger, kicking Duke Carl's chest with one foot, stomping him directly on the edge of the platform, almost stomping his bones. He screamed, still laughing like a neurotic, "It's too late, Lin Hao, the slut is no longer something I can control. Even if you kill me, you can't stop all this, ha ha ha." I looked down and saw that the blue light below the platform was already as heavy as a group of liquid, with countless small groups of worms surging wildly inside, as if they were about to break through the container at any time and swallow everything. The parents and other arrested people in the transparent container were getting whiter and whiter, as if their vitality had been taken away. My heart hurts, my fists clenched and turned to stare at Duke Carl. "Old thing, tell me how to close the core, otherwise I will smash your brain now." Duke Carl coughed up a mouthful of blood, his eyes cold, as if he was not afraid of death. "Wanna close? Dream. Only I know the core ultimate password, but now the snail group has started automatically. Unless you can smash the entire floating city with one punch, no one can stop it. Breaking it with one punch?" I sneered, and the information flow of gene locks suddenly flashed in my brain, as if there was a deeper potential that had not been dug out. The power of the 3rd level has allowed me to crush the team, but if there are still higher levels, maybe it can really do it. I clenched my teeth and growled, "Gene lock, 4th level, open." In an instant, a terrifying force that had never been seen exploded from the body, and my vision turned into a red, and the muscles in my body seemed to be torn and reorganized, and every bone was squeaking, as if it could carry the entire star. I growled suddenly, and the air was shaken out of a circle of traces, and the metal fragments on the platform were blown away directly. Duke Carl's face finally changed, from crazy to pure fear, and his voice was trembling. You monster, this is impossible. It's impossible for you to be a shit. I grinned, and the feeling of power inside my body seemed to be able to tear the starry sky. I took one step and a big pit was directly stepped on the ground, and then I punched hard at the edge of the platform where Duke Carl was located. Roll! There was a huge sound, and the entire platform was smashed into pieces by me. Duke Carl screamed and was directly blown away by the waves. He hit the wall of the Duke's hall, and his flesh was blurred and he was completely gone. But this was not over yet. The blue light from the snails had begun to overflow from under the platform, spreading around like a flood, and a hole was corroded into the metal walls. My heart was tight and I knew that if I couldn't act, I wouldn't say that I would save my parents, even if I could be swallowed up. I turned my head and looked at the communication device and shouted, "Ally, where's the core? I'll smash it now." Ellie's voice came quickly, just below the Duke's hall, the core room of the energy source. But there is the most severe defense in that place. The energy barrier can block the main gun of the starship. If you are hard, you will only be electrocuted. Is it a slag? I want to see if it is hard or my fist is hard. I gritted my teeth, and the power inside my body was once again urged to the extreme, and turned around and punched directly at the ground in the center of the Duke's hall. Bang! The floor was smashed directly by me, revealing a passage leading to the lower part. The blue light came from below, like a deep purplish that could swallow people. I didn't hesitate and jumped down directly. The two sides of the channel were full of energy barriers. The blue arc was sizzling and the skin became irritated when I got a little closer. But I don't care about these things now. The power of the 4th level gene lock makes me feel like I'm wearing a layer of invisible armor, and I'm slamming down with an electric arc. Every step was like stepping on the tip of a knife, which hurt so much that I gritted my teeth, but there was only one thought in my brain: smashing the broken core and saving my parents. Finally, I kicked open the entrance of the core room with one foot. In front of me was a huge energy ball, full of sweeping nanomechanical cysts, and the blue light made people's eyes unable to open. There are several thick barriers around the energy ball, and the arc is circling on the surface like a snake, and the air is burnt. My heart sank, knowing that this thing can't be smashed by chance, but now there is no other way to go, so I can only come. Break it for me! I roared, and the blue light burst out on the fist, as if it could tear open the space, and punched the outermost barrier with a hard punch. Strange. I smashed a crack directly from the barrier, and the arc almost swept me. But I gritted my teeth and flew several times in a row. The first barrier finally collapsed and the fragments were filled. But the clams seemed to be angry, and they rushed out of the energy ball, turning into a group of blue lights and swept towards me, like monsters that could devour everything. I slapped my fists with my head and punched each one, but these things seemed to be killed endlessly, and blood marks were cut from my skin, which made me so much that I sucked my air. I know, don't urge me. I gritted my teeth and replied, and my body's strength exploded again, and I forced myself to attack the group of snails, and another punch hit the second barrier. This time the force was even stronger, the entire core room was shaken, and the barrier was smashed directly by me. The arc seemed to explode and almost overturn me. The last barrier was right in front of me, and the blue light of the thorns was already as thick as a fog, almost flooding people. I gasped, my body was covered in injuries, my blood dripped with sweat, but my eyes were fixed on the energy ball, and there was only one thought in my heart: smash it. Gene locks, extremely limited explosion. I growled, focusing all my strength on my right fist. My muscles seemed to be able to explode, and then I punched them hard. Room. This punch seemed to be like the sky collapsed and the earth was broken. The entire core chamber was shaken and split. The last barrier exploded directly. The group of horns in the energy ball burst out with a harsh sound of sharp birds. then it seemed to have lost control and perished wildly. The blue light gradually dimmed, and finally turned into a pile of harmless debris scattered on the ground. I was blown away by the shock wave and hit the wall hard. The pain was so painful that my bones almost broke up, but I felt a sigh of relief in my heart. Finally, I was done. The shock of the floating city began to weaken, as if it had recovered its stability again. I got up, dragged my wounds back to the Duke's hall, quickly opened the transparent containers, and released my parents and others. Although their eyes were still a little confused, they obviously regained their consciousness. When my father saw me, his eyes turned red and his voice choked. "How? Did you save us?" "Dad, Mom, it's all right." I grinned and helped them. Although my body hurt so much, my heart was so warm. Ellie's voice also came from the communication device, carrying a slight, "Lin Hao, fucked beautifully. The floating city has stabilized, the crisis of the gang was lifted, and the remaining precious tribes are surrendering. We have won. Give me?" I was stunned for a moment, and then I burst into laughter, my eyes almost falling off. The waste that crawled out of the garbage dump can now trample a wealthy clan like Duke Car under his feet, and save his parents in Shanghai. This feeling is so cool. But this is not finished yet. Although the floating city was stable, the news of Duke Carl's death was soon revealed. The nobles of the empire were like fishy fish, and they sent people to investigate the situation. I took Ellie and the rebels and directly used the Duke's house as a temporary commander, ready to welcome these guys. A few days later, a warship of a noble army arrived over the floating city, with an old man wearing Huali armor on his head. His voice came through a communication device in his high voice. "Lin Hao, we cannot pursue Duke Car's death, but you must hand over the floating city, otherwise we will launch a general attack." "Super it?" I sneered, stood on the broken platform of the Duke's hall, looking down at the battleships, and my fists were clenched. "I have worked hard to smash the floor. You can just hand over it? If you have the ability, let's choose it." The old man's face changed, as if he didn't expect me to be so tough, but then he snorted coldly, "What an arrogant slave. Since you are looking for death, don't blame us for being rude. All soldiers, start fire." The warship's muzzle lit up instantly, and the energy beam smashed towards the floating city like a raindrop. The explosion of the impact wave directly lifted the surrounding dead bodies. I gritted my teeth, and the power of the gene lock in my body exploded again. I stood on the platform and held the first wave of attacks. Then I roared, "Allie, take someone to fight back. Today, I will let these precious tribes know who is the boss of Shanghai." Ellie quickly launched a counterattack with the rebels. Although the defense system of Floating City was broken, its core firepower was still there. Several high-energy cannons directly drove the opponent's first battleship into pieces. I jumped directly to the highest point of the platform, and my internal strength reached the limit, and I punched the flag of the new clan army from the air. Room! I tore open a crack in the air, and the fist turned into a slam, smashing the shield of the flag, and the voices of the noble tribes on the deck could be heard across the old far away. What kind of monster is this?" The old man's voice finally brought a terror, and then his roar was transmitted from the communication device, "Retreat! Retreat!" The war team seemed to see a ghost, quickly rushed and ran away, and there was no courage to resist. I stood on the platform, looking down at their escaped backs, and the smell of nitros on my fists was still carrying the smell of fighting, and an unprecedented pleasure surged in my heart. Starting today, no one in the Silver River and Star Sea can force me, the noble tribe? But it was a group of wastelands that would kneel down and beg for gifts. A few days later, the floating city was finally controlled by the rebels, and the remaining precious tribes surrendered. Several large expensive tribes even came to the floating city, bowing their heads and begging me for salute, saying that they were willing to hand over all their resources, just asking me to let them live. I looked at them with a sneer and shouted, "Want to survive? Okay, from today on, I will decide the rules of the Silver River and Star Sea. You rich people, it depends on your mood as a dog." Their faces were blue and they didn't dare to say anything. They knelt on the ground obediently, and they didn't dare to breathe. Ellie stood beside me and couldn't help laughing. Lin Hao, I didn't expect you to do it. She crawled out of the garbage dump and became the overlord of the Star Sea. I grinned and turned to look at my parents. Their faces were filled with gratitude, as if they finally saw hope. I patted my chest and said in a low voice, "This is just the beginning. The Starry Sea is so big. I have to take you to a better life. The era of the noble clan is over. From now on, the Silver River and the Starry Sea are our world." Over the floating city, the stars were flashing, as if they were to prove my new dominance. I stood at the highest point of the platform, my fists were clenched, and there was only one thought in my mind: no matter what challenges I had in the future, I could not hold back if I punched me.